Ripped off, out of pocket, short-changed. No one likes getting a bad deal.
But knowing who to trust can be tough.
None of these people can help. They all pass me on.
So when your money is under threat and you think you've lost out, Rip-Off Britain is here to help.
We'll be investigating the companies that you say are letting you down.
My life was in the balance. Where was their compassion?
And we'll be taking on the scammers that are causing you heartache and misery.
I felt sick. I knew I'd been scammed.
So whether it's a mistake that's left you out of pocket or a blatant rip-off, we're here to help you find out what you can do about it.
This is Rip-Off Britain.
Hello, and we're delighted you've been able to join us for Rip-Off Britain. Well, here we are in our Salford headquarters, where our team, I promise you, are very hard at work, investigating the stories that you have asked us to help with.
Today, we're on the case of the homeowners left in hellish situations which feel completely out of their control. Like the couple who chose the self-proclaimed #1 company in the business to have their state-of-the-art new heating system installed, but now bitterly regret it.
I think it was -5 degrees at some points in Leeds. The dog was wearing a fleece in the house all day long because it was so cold.
Plus, the devastating impact of coastal erosion. Now, we're going to be catching up with the couple who we last saw as the cliff at the end of their garden was just inching ever closer to their home. Well, I'm sorry to say, 3 years on, things have got much, much worse.
And we just had a call from the lifeboat crew, and they just said, well, sorry, Malk, there's a lump of land fallen from under your house.
He called me over and we just hugged each other and burst into tears in the middle of the high street.
Yeah.
But first, honestly, I've lost count of the times we've talked about the devastation wrought by cowboy builders. And I have to say, it makes me very careful about choosing anyone to do the work on my house, particularly building work.
While there are building regulations that dictate how a builder should do certain jobs, there are no such regulations for how qualified or indeed capable a builder has to be before they can start working on your home. It's a situation that the people in our next film believe must change after they say their particular builders put the very safety of their families at risk.
This was supposed to be my dream home, give us a better quality of life. It's been 2.5 years now, and we're still not home.
In February 2021, Sarah and her family moved out of their home in Bury to allow building works to take place. The last thing she expected was to be left unable to move back in due to shoddy and even dangerous work by the company that she hired to do it.
Feel sick. Can't believe that he's done this to us. He promised to look after us.
At the heart of the renovation plans was her sister-in-law, Debbie, who lives with Sarah and her husband and 2 children.
There you go. Is that better for you? Yeah. There you go. You having a brew?
Please.
Drop telly on.
Music.
Music.
The massive job would see extensions added to the back and side of the house and a whole new accessible layout to give Debbie some long overdue freedom.
For Debbie to be able to be more independent, she would feel a lot happier, feel more part of the family, and be able to do more things for herself. That's what the adaptations were all about, for better quality of life.
Sarah got quotes from 3 local builders and chose one whose credentials seemed top-notch. It was even a member of the Federation of Master Builders, a trade body which vets all members before they can join. And the boss impressed Sarah and her partner.
He reassured us that he would make it our dream home. His website advertised he'd been going over 30 years. I never found any bad reviews, and I thought, well, I've got a decent builder here.
A contract was drawn up with the work set to cost £154,000 and expected to take just under 5 months. But a smooth start quickly led to a very rough ride when the roof was extended.
This room was a major issue with the roof leaking constantly. It's caused a lot of mould on the walls, on the plaster. We kept challenging him over the roof leaking, and he must have looked at it about 6 times, to the point where it never got resolved.
But desperate to keep things on track, Sarah continued to pay the builder in instalments.
I was worried that if I challenged him, he would then walk off the job, and there's nowhere to turn.
The original autumn completion date slipped to Christmas 2021, and then March 2022. And the following month, Sarah paid more of the remaining balance in order to get the build finished. But the builder was becoming elusive.
He would make excuses not to turn up for meetings, one being that his van's broke down and he sent us a picture at the side of the motorway, the number of times he had COVID. And then another one was that his mother was ill.
After more than a year, Sarah was fed up with waiting for the job to be done. With the roof still leaking, she asked another builder to take a look. And Sarah was in for a big shock.
Due to the roof not being installed correctly, the whole roof has to be taken back off. It could have collapsed in on us and killed us. That's how dangerous the situation was. Seeing the house like this is so upsetting. It's heartbreaking.
Sarah was also told that the steel beam support had not been installed correctly, and this would also have to be fixed. The original building company continued with its excuses, and in August 2022, Sarah says she had no option but to hire the second builder to sort out the roof. With work now underway again, it's estimated it could cost up to £200,000, on top of the amount she'd already paid the first builder, which, with added costs, now stood at more than £169,000.
At the minute, we're paying mortgage, we're paying rent, we're paying bills. My husband is working 6 days a week. It's affecting his health. I'm trying to do as much as I can to keep the family happy. We've lost 2 years of happiness where we should have been in this home.
When we spoke to the original building company, it blamed Sarah and her husband for stalling the job and increasing both the scope and cost by asking for a number of works to be carried out over and above those agreed in the original contract. The firm said it suggested ways to reduce the escalating cost and claimed it had to wait for other contractors who were working directly for the couple to finish on site before it could continue. It disputed any suggestion of substandard workmanship and said that it always intended to rectify any defects before the final building inspection. However, the contract was terminated before those inspections could be carried out. At the same time as Sarah was pulling the plug on her builder, 200 miles away in Luton...
If you want to follow me in, just be careful. There's a big gap here.
Police officer Sam Davidson was in the middle of his own nightmare home extension.
It's just upsetting. It's frustrating. We're 16 months into the project that should have taken less than 16 weeks, and we're still living in this environment.
Sam had hired a local builder to complete the work at a cost of £67,600. But 5 months after work began, his neighbour, Pete, who's also a builder, intervened.
I first noticed the actual steelwork was just a massive lump of iron that was just hanging around, and it was supported so badly that I had to pop round to have a look at that, because to me it don't look like it's right, and really it's snowballed from there.
With Pete's help, Sam uncovered a multitude of problems.
There was a big gap in the brickwork. Electrical sockets and light switches had water pouring out of them. Above the conservatory roof, there was structural cracks.
There was nothing supporting any of the joists, so their upstairs floor was sort of bouncing a bit. Well, you've got to be very concerned. I've got 2 little kids running around.
We weren't far away from the whole house falling down. The emotional impact's been huge.
Sam issued legal proceedings against the builder, but before that was resolved, the director of the building company was declared bankrupt.
We've had to remortgage just to get our house into the position it's in now, where it's habitable and where we've got sort of a functioning kitchen.
When we spoke to the building firm behind Sam's job, it told us it was originally hired following a large number of local recommendations, and that despite things starting well, it was faced with incorrect architect drawings and alterations to the planned works. When Sam removed the building firm from the job, it says it highlighted the risks of the unfinished works and offered to return the next day to make them safe. But that Sam refused this, along with its requests to get its own independent assessment made of the costs to complete the job. The building firm also told us that when Sam issued legal proceedings against it, it offered to make monthly payments towards a settlement figure, but that this was rejected. The owner of the firm went on to stress that this has all come at significant emotional cost to him. While the firms Sam and Sarah chose for their extensions came with good reviews, inspections by qualified independent specialists have confirmed that the work is not up to standard. And now both families are tens of thousands of pounds out of pocket. As a result of it all, Sarah is now campaigning for a significant change that could stop others going through the same experience. Currently, anyone can set up as a builder, but Sarah has joined calls to introduce mandatory licensing for all of them.
There needs to be change where people can be reassured that who they're employing are capable of doing the job. And also the consequences that if they don't do the job properly, they lose the licence.
It's a change that Sam backs wholeheartedly, even supporting Sarah to petition government to introduce the new rules.
The architect that we hired to design our house is regulated, the structural engineer has qualifications and is regulated. The only people that aren't regulated, seemingly, are the builders that you employ to actually do the work. I feel really strongly that change is needed because I don't want to see another family or individual go through such a devastating process.
I think that film is absolutely staggering, but I'm sure that the circumstances in which those viewers found themselves are not unknown to many other people watching this programme. But I'm delighted to say that joining me now is solicitor Gary Rycroft. Good morning, Gary. I'm going to come to you in a moment because, first of all, we're joined by Brian Berry from the Federation of Master Builders. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we have just seen a film of the most extraordinary situation that two people have found themselves in. I'm sure it's a situation that is not unfamiliar to you, but I know that you, as an industry, do want some kind of regulator, ombudsman, something compulsory. What exactly are you calling for?
Well, we're calling for the licensing of building companies to protect consumers and improve the reputation of the industry. We find it incredulous that actually anyone can call themselves a builder in this country. And of course, consumers are being ripped off. So what we've said is actually there should be a single licensing authority which would regulate building companies in this country. So each building company would pay for a license. It would be renewed every 3 years. That would enable a database of licensed building companies to be made available to consumers.
The Federation of Master Builders is an organisation that exists for builders to join. What kind of sanctions can you take against a builder if they are a member of your society and they are turning out the kind of work that we've just seen on the film there?
We've introduced over time criteria to check the building companies coming into the Federation of Master Builders. It requires an independent inspection of the work before they can join. But we are a voluntary trade association. So the sanctions we can take, the ultimate sanction is to expel the company. But that means the company can still operate in the building industry. That can't be right. If a company has been expelled, they should actually then not be able to carry out work in order to protect the industry and consumers.
As we mentioned in the film, the builder hired by Sarah was a member of the Federation of Master Builders. It says the company was expelled following complaints from a different customer in March of 2022.
I'm going to come to Gary, who's with me in the studio at the moment. Gary, listening to what you've just heard there from Brian, what recourse currently do customers actually have?
Well, customers like our viewers that we saw in that film, they have to go and rely on the law as it stands at the moment, and that means either suing the builder for breach of contract or suing them under the Consumer Rights Act. So it's a very difficult position for consumers to be in. We need a process where people who have a dispute can have a quick, easy and cheap resolution to that dispute. That has to be part of the regulation.
Brian, there are, of course, an awful lot of builders who will say that some builders have very, very fine reputations as builders. And what they're saying is that it is word of mouth that keeps up professional standards. If they do a bad job, they will be out of a job. They don't need to charge their customers more by being regulated. So what do you actually say to that?
Well, that's actually true. Word of mouth. Most builders are doing excellent work across the country. But there are builders who do pay extra. We've got members, of course, who pay an annual subscription. So they recognise the value in having a badge of competence to demonstrate that they are a cut above what other building companies are doing. We did a survey of our members, 86% said they were in favour of licensing. So they recognise the value of the licensing, even if it's additional regulation or cost, because they feel so strongly about the need to protect the image and promote what the building industry does best.
Well, the government clearly does not seem to agree that we need regulation. Now, when we spoke to the Department for Business and Trade, it told us that the Consumer Rights Act and the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Bill, there's a mouthful for you, do give enforcement bodies the tools that they need to protect people from rogue traders. It added that while it recognises the benefits of a licensing scheme, there is limited evidence of their effectiveness in other countries where, in fact, they do apply, or whether the protection one would provide is proportionate to the additional cost for consumers. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Brian, and Gary, thank you for being in the studio with us.
Well, since filming, Sarah's builder has had a case brought against him by Trading Standards. So rest assured, we'll be keeping a close eye on what happens next.
Well, it's time now for our advice clinic, where we put the brains of the nation's best consumer rights experts to work on your problems. Well, with me in the advice clinic today is Consumer Rights Mastermind. I like that. Here's Martin James, of course, so welcome, Martin. And I hope you're going to be able to help out Lynn, who's joining us from Cambridge. So hello to you, Lynn. I gather your problem is all to do with Tesco Club Card vouchers.
Well, I've collected quite a lot of vouchers over the years actually, because I kept rolling them over. And then I saw that Tesco's were going to be downgrading their vouchers.
Lynn had saved up £250 worth of vouchers, and options at the time meant that they could be worth up to 3 times that if used with some companies. So before the rules changed, Lynn wanted to cash in, and so she exchanged her vouchers for £750 to spend at hotels.com. That's a good chunk. And then you decided to go to a hotel. So what did you spend there?
We had a 2-night break in Hastings and it cost £190.
So you've still got quite a lot left, haven't you?
Yeah.
Lynn believed that she still had £560 to spend on the site. So she went to book her next trip away. Then what did you discover, Lynn?
I couldn't understand why I couldn't get anywhere booking a hotel. It kept rejecting my code, and in the end I tried to get hold of hotels.com, which I couldn't. So I went to Tesco Club Card, and that's when I found out that the voucher was apparently a one-off voucher. And once I'd used that code, that was it, it was gone.
Well, no, that's terrible, isn't it, Martin, really?
Oh, absolutely. And do you know what, Gloria? This is one of those things that, you know, as Lynn's very well explained there, most people don't realise this until it actually happens to them. Now, companies always tell me that there's a warning. What's very clear here is that warning clearly wasn't good enough. Lynn in no way would have attempted to throw away nearly 600 quid's worth of hotel vouchers.
How did the whole thing make you feel when you realised that you had now lost all that money?
Well, I was really, really angry, and I actually felt it was quite immoral.
I think I would have been angry too, but we spoke to Tesco, which told us that the terms and conditions are clearly displayed on each firm's club card reward pages, but anyone with questions could get in touch with Tesco for help. Now, meanwhile, hotels.com also told us the terms and conditions for its club card collaboration are very clear. And there's a video to further explain how to correctly use the coupons. But Lynn, after we got involved, what happened then with Tesco?
I got an email from Tesco Club Card Customer Services saying they'd credited my club card account with 10,000 club card points, which equates to the value of £100 if you were to spend them in store, or if you could double them up for one of their reward partners, meaning that it would be worth £200.
Lynn is still not satisfied, though, and believes that she's £360 out of pocket. So, Martin, obviously Lynn has had a bit of a result there, maybe not to her satisfaction, but she's had a result. What else might she have done?
Well, you're right, she's had a bit of a result, but again, she's still down a huge amount of money. So I would encourage you strongly, Lynn, to make a formal complaint. Now, unfortunately, we don't have an ombudsman or a regulator for the hotels industry, which means you're stuck with the small claims court. But don't be intimidated by that. It's all online. It's really, really easy to do. And there's an option to mediate it first as well. So it may well be that Hotels.com reconsider their position. And I'd also encourage Tesco's to maybe have another think about what they've done. You've not accepted the offer in full and final settlement. So the fact of the matter is they can still take another look at the complaint.
Well, Lynn, it's a lesson to all of us, actually. I wouldn't have known what you've just told us at all. Thank you for joining us, and of course to Martin as well. Thank you.
Earlier, we were talking about clamping down on cowboy builders, and I have to say that some of the stories that we hear from people who've lost out to rogues really do take your breath away.
They do.
Asma Razak tells us that the builder she employed to extend her kitchen didn't install a crucial steel beam, so the extension failed the building's inspection. Unfortunately, Asma says she'd already paid the builder in full.
Linda and Graham Cliff were also in the market for a kitchen extension. Now, they paid £34,000 for it, but the builder hasn't even finished the job. And the couple said the home looks like a bomb has hit it. They've had quotes to put the work right, and they say it could cost up to £30,000 to rectify the damage. It's awful.
Some terrible stories there, and according to our lawyer, Gary Rycroft, it is actually sensible to make stage payments and get a contract. All of which, of course, is fine, providing you've got a really good builder. But sadly, as we saw, things can go badly wrong if, unfortunately, you end up with a cowboy. And as Gary said earlier, you can sue the builders, but it is risky and expensive. But I think really all of this highlights that you really need to do your homework when you're choosing a builder.
Too right.
Absolutely right. Well, if you have any issue you'd like our experts to get their teeth into, please do let us know. We are ripoffbritain@bbc.co.uk on the email, BBC Ripoff Britain on Facebook, and of course our address is Ripoff Britain, BBC Media City UK, Salford, M50 2BH. But as we always say, please don't send us any original documents because we can't return them.
Well, next, from building work to another home improvement, which really requires some expertise. When the couple in our next film chose to blaze a trail and have a state-of-the-art air source heat pump installed, as the government indeed wants many of us to do, they knew this wasn't a job just anyone could do.
So they turned to the self-proclaimed #1 installer of heat pumps in the country. They expected expertise, but what they actually got left them cold in more ways than one.
In the march towards net zero, some say air source heat pumps are our best hope. But despite the government's aim to phase out the vast majority of new gas boilers by 2035, fewer than 1% of homes currently have a heat pump. One of those, in Leeds, belongs to James Moxon, a former GP who has been determinedly doing his bit for the planet for years now.
This is our electric car. I decided to go electric a couple of years ago. We've also got the solar panels on the roof. There's 28, I think, in total.
But in 2023, 2 years after having his heat pump installed, James wrote to us to tell us it was the only eco-home improvement that hasn't lived up to its billing.
It wasn't maintaining the temperature as we expected it to. The pump really seemed to struggle to the point where the temperature would drop overnight, so that it then took most of the rest of the following day to heat back up.
The family say they had to use portable gas and electric heaters to keep the house warm. Then, during an extended cold snap, the issue got worse.
So over a period of several days, the temperature was gradually falling, and overnight it would drop to 9 or 10 degrees. Effectively, we'd been freezing in our house.
A heat pump works like an air conditioner in reverse. Instead of keeping your home cool, it extracts air through a heat exchanger from either the ground or, as in James's case, the surrounding air to warm the home. James and his wife Sian spent months researching the technology and looking for the right installer. They plumped for Greener Living Limited, which claimed to be the UK's #1 heat pump installer.
They seemed to come with a reasonable set of reviews and to be a nationwide company. And all of that seemed to fit the bill for what we wanted.
To get the pump installed would cost £14,845. But with the help of a government grant, the total cost to James would, in the end, turn out to be similar to a new gas boiler.
The government incentive scheme would recoup about £12,600 over 7 years, so that made it much more appealing.
When James started to have problems heating the house during especially cold periods, he informed Greener Living.
They seemed confident that everything was working well, and as the weather improved and the pump settled down, we thought that everything must be working fine. The house was nice and comfortable, it stayed at a good temperature until we got to January 2022, and we had another cold snap.
Once again, the heat pump couldn't seem to cope with the colder weather, but Greener Living insisted everything was running properly. James and Sian muddled on until the spring. And the heating did improve until January 2023, when temperatures dropped dramatically.
I think it was -5 degrees at some point in Leeds. The heat pump just seemed to be struggling. The dog was wearing a fleece in the house all day long because it was so cold.
For a third winter in a row, James's heat pump was acting up.
There were 3 engineers, I think, who came out over the subsequent week, all of whom agreed with us that the pump wasn't working.
The engineers left, and Greener Living said it would contact the pump's manufacturer, LG, to repair it under warranty. But then things went quiet.
Approximately 5 or 6 weeks of ringing to try and get answers, and there was no progress whatsoever with arranging for somebody to come and repair the pump, or to replace the pump, or to do anything.
In the meantime, James says using portable heaters as backup meant their energy bill rose by £900 in February 2023. And as if that extra cost wasn't enough, James says the firm hasn't provided him with any paperwork, serial numbers, or the details he needs to receive the quarterly government payment he's relying on to offset some of the costs.
They have to fill a form in to give details of the new pump and where it's come from. Without that formal paperwork, the renewable heat incentive payments have been suspended.
James has missed out on hundreds of pounds worth of payments, and he doesn't know if or when he'll ever get any of it back.
The fact that they can supply you with a piece of equipment without ever actually giving you any information about how it works and how to look after it and what guarantees apply to it, etc., it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
James complained not just to Greener Living, but also to HICE, a consumer protection organisation covering the installation of renewable energy products. But the installer didn't respond. But when he came to us, we spoke to the heat pump's manufacturer, LG, which told us that Greener Living never made the warranty claim James was told to expect, and that the installation was not carried out according to its guidelines, making the warranty invalid. But when we spoke to Greener Living, it disputed that. It told us it was waiting for a report from the manufacturer and added it will act upon that when it's received. Greener Living also told us it was in constant communication with James throughout his time without heating and hot water. It said that although the responsibility to resolve the issue lay with the manufacturer, Greener Living decided to replace the heat pump at its own cost due to the length of time James was waiting. Greener Living said it wasn't aware of James's lower heat incentive payments until we got in touch, but it has now agreed to make up the difference if it's a result of the firm's actions. Despite all the challenges getting to this point, James still believes in the technology.
I genuinely do believe that heat pumps are the way forward, but something needs to change in terms of how they're installed and the customer support after they're installed, because I really don't want anybody else to suffer in the same way that we have.
Well, to talk about all this, here with me is Felicity Hanna, presenter of Radio 4's Money Box Live and 5 Live's The Big Green Money Show. Felicity, thanks very much for being here. Putting James's experience that we've just seen on one side for a minute, in the government's eyes, heat pumps are considered to be the future, aren't they?
Oh, heat pumps are absolutely the future. So we're going to move away from gas boilers as a country. Our homes account for something like 1/5 of the UK's emissions. So greening them up, making them more efficient is absolutely key to tackling climate change.
There are a lot of kind of rumours and stories about heat pumps, because some people say they're not well suited to the kind of drafty houses that we Brits live in. What's your take on that?
So there's a bit of a dispute over whether older houses are suitable to heat pumps. I think the most important thing is drafty houses aren't. So before you have a heat pump installed, it's really important to get a heat survey carried out. Now, it'll cost you about £250 and it will show how drafty your home is. And actually, all of us, before we start installing fancy new technology, we should be going back to the basics, fixing those drafts, putting in thicker curtains, putting in draft excluders at the door and insulating your roof. That is cheap and it makes a really, really significant difference. So do that first. And another thing you should do, once you know you're ready for a heat pump, is look at what government support is out there.
Well, supposing you've done all the precautions you talked about and your home is judged to be suited to a heat pump, next thing is you've got to find a proper installer. Now, if it turns out wrong, what kind of redress do you have?
Yeah, I mean, as always, pay part of it with a credit card because that way you've got extra protections. But then after that, you must make sure they're MCS certified. Now, that's the Microgeneration Certification Scheme. It gives you a certain amount of quality assurance. You know that they're going to be up to standard. You should also check that your installer is a member of HIES, that's the HIES, or the Renewable Energy Consumer Code. And again, that means that they're signed up to higher standards, and it means you've got somewhere to go if there's a problem, so you can go and complain to them. In fact, James's installer was registered with HIES, but that does mean that he can go to them, he can ask them to carry out an independent investigation, he can ask them to arbitrate between him and his installer, so it's an extra bit of protection. But it's really important to remember you don't lose your standard consumer protections either. Under the Consumer Rights Act, they can't mislead you about what kind of technology they're going to fit. They've got to carry it out with due care. They've got to do it in reasonable time. And if you feel that that's not happened, you can go to a small claims court for anything worth up to £10,000 to demand that things get put right.
So plenty of avenues.
Absolutely.
Well, when we spoke to the energy regulator, Ofgem, it said that anyone experiencing problems or concerns with the new heat pump system should speak to their installer first. Ofgem stressed, as Felicity, you've just said, that all installers must be a member of the Microgeneration Certification Scheme and will be members of a Trading Standards Institute-approved consumer code. So anyone experiencing problems with their installer should visit the MCS website for further advice. So after all that, Felicity, final thoughts?
I think my final thought is that heat pumps really are the future. They're part of the solution. And if you're considering one, then really well done. You're that first wave of people. And it's a really important decision. You're going to future-proof your bills, you're going to add value to your home, and you're also going to play a significant part in cutting our emissions as a country. So it's fantastic. Don't be put off by poor tradespeople. Just avoid them.
Wonderful advice, Felicity. A lot to think about, and actually we put all that advice on our website, bbc.co.uk/ripoffbritain.
Well, now to a story that we first brought to you back in 2020. And I have to say, hand on heart, that it is truly heartbreaking. People who bought their homes in the hope of having a happy, settled family life, only to be left with their houses teetering in the balance. Now, shortly, I'm going to be finding out the very latest on this growing problem for scores of people right across the UK. But first, have a look at our original film. The Norfolk seaside village of Hemsby sits 8 miles north of Great Yarmouth on the county's 90-mile-long coastline. Gorgeous. When we visited in August 2020, it was the home to Malcolm Debbage and Francis Bolton.
We're here on a very nice seaside day, really. Bit of wind. I suppose it makes you pretty wistful, really. We should be sitting out the back with a couple of glasses of cider, but it's gone.
The couple had moved to Hemsby in 2017, and their two-bedroomed home overlooked the sea, and it was a picture postcard spot with more than 10 metres of garden between the house and the cliff edge. But in March 2018 came a storm that moved the cliff edge much, much closer.
The beast from the east is on its way.
We were away at the time, and we just had a call from the lifeboat crew at Hemsby, and they just said, well, sorry, Malk, there's a lump of land fallen from under your house. And I said, well, just under the deck in this snow. Sorry, it's under your house.
8 metres of their garden had literally vanished overnight.
We just hugged each other and burst into tears in the middle of the high street.
Yeah.
With the house now teetering on the edge, the couple moved into temporary council accommodation further inland, while they ready to claim on their home insurance. Now, they knew it wouldn't cover coastal erosion, but they believed it would cover damage caused by storms. And when a third storm battered the coast a month later, the council served them with a demolition notice. Their home, very sadly, was gone in a tragedy that cost the couple an estimated £120,000. But any chance of getting that back disappeared when their insurer, Halifax, pointed to a geotechnical report which blamed not the storms, but years of coastal erosion. Malcolm and Francis disagreed.
There was a month's rainfall.
There was a month's rainfall
in a day,
which affected the top of the cliff. So this was a sudden event, and it's what we're covered for.
When we last saw the couple, they were nervously waiting for the Financial Ombudsman Service to consider their case and hoping that Halifax would be forced to reverse its decision. Halifax told us that while it sympathised with the situation that Malcolm and Francis were in, its investigations, along with the opinion of an independent expert, confirmed that the damage was due to coastal erosion and not a storm. And in November 2020, the Ombudsman agreed. But the couple are still fighting their case 3 years on.
we had to move from the area. So we moved to London and we're still fighting our case. We hope to win out with this because we are not the only people. Subsequently, in the Hemsby area, other houses have been demolished because of the threat of coastal change caused by weather.
But this is a story that's familiar right around the British coastline. Malcolm and Francis aren't the only ones who think insurers need a reality check. But I think you'll agree you can sense the absolute frustration that Malcolm and Francis are going through. And joining us today is environmental scientist Angela Terry to explore some of the issues that this raises. So, Angela, here's a question for you. If this was your home, what would you say to the insurance company at this point?
Yeah, well, obviously, coastal erosion has been happening for thousands of years. It's a natural, dynamic process. But what we're seeing is superstorms that come in and within 24 hours completely change the shape of the whole communities. And that is unprecedented storms and rising sea levels caused directly by climate change.
The problem is, though, it's all too easy for an insurance company to say that. Sorry, it's erosion.
Yeah, and that is, in the past, it would be an acceptable answer, but we know climate change is here now. It's transforming our coastlines and it's only going to get worse and it will affect literally hundreds of thousands of properties. So that stance will have to change. The problem that we have is there is no compensation at all for people who face losing their homes. It's not covered by insurance and there is no government scheme to support them. They can get a demolition grant and that's about it. So they potentially lose everything.
In response to the increased speed at which the coast is eroding, Angela's organisation has created an interactive map to highlight the 21 English coastal communities most at risk. It enables residents to easily find out how vulnerable their home might be to climate change in the coming years and whether any plans are in place to protect their section of coastline.
So we covered the coast of England. Over a third is already down as no active intervention, and people simply don't know this. So they're putting extensions onto their properties, which might not be viable. They're investing more money where they really should be looking at how they can get out of that property. So there are some places that currently have hold the line, which means sea defences will be there. But the key thing is there is no budget allocated to those sea defences, and we know local authorities don't have much money.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Flood risk maps are also produced for all parts of the UK by official bodies. That's the Environment Agency in England, Natural Resources Wales, the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department for Infrastructure in Northern Ireland. And we have put all of that information and links to this on our website, bbc.co.uk/ripofbritain. I mean, what advice would you finally give to people? Because, of course, it's very attractive, you know, a house by the sea, and a surveyor or somebody else, an estate agent, tells you, well, you've got 50, 60 years, and you think, that'll see me out. What advice would you give to people now?
I would say that in terms of climate change, I would proceed with huge caution. You have to realise that we cannot hold back the sea, and that climate change is marching on. And coastal communities are on the front line of climate change, and we're going to see quite a lot of climate refugees, basically, because of this global warming.
Climate refugees.
In the UK, yes.
Just a final word about the insurance company. What do you think the insurance company should do now?
I think we need a coastal minister who can really address this problem. We need better information for those looking to buy houses, but crucially, we need a compensation scheme for those people.
Well, Angela, it's vital information, so thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
When we spoke to DEFRA, the government department responsible for coastal erosion in England, it told us it's investing £5.2 billion between 2021 and 2027 to better protect communities across England from flooding and coastal erosion, along with £200 million to help improve resilience to flooding and coastal erosion, and to help those communities most at risk. The Scottish Government told us it set out new plans on how to prepare and adapt for future coastal changes in February 2023, while the separate Dynamic Coast project is enabling it and local authorities to prepare for and better manage future coastal change. The Welsh Government said its Coastal Risk Management Programme will invest over £200 million to reduce risk to over 15,000 properties by the end of 2024. And it has in place an updated strategy to manage flood risk over the next decade. In Northern Ireland, the Department for Infrastructure told us that it's taking action on a number of fronts to reduce flood risk, and that it's working with other government departments and public bodies to draw up a comprehensive assessment of the coastline, which will inform future decisions on coastal management.
Well, that's very nearly all from us for today. But remember, all the stories in today's programme came from you. And while we can't always guarantee that we're able to fix things for everyone who writes into us, the team certainly does try.
I have to admit they work very, very hard. And if you've got something that you'd like us to investigate, or maybe you just have something that you'd like to say about today's programme, we are all ears. You can email us, ripofbritain@bbc.co.uk, and honestly, we really love getting your messages.
Unfortunately, though, we're out of time for today's programme. So until we see you again, thanks so much for your company. And from everyone on the team, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Beauty and wonder still exist. He says it himself on his latest epic, life-affirming adventure in the wilderness with Simon Reeve. Press red to watch on iPlayer. Closer to home, Under the Hammer on BBC One next.